Have you ever walked into a room and noticed that the first thing to shift wasn't the light but the invisible rhythm in the air? Conversations falter for half a beat. A glance drifts away. A smile suddenly feels forced. No one can quite name it yet. Everyone feels it. What you carry isn't just ordinary charisma. It's more like a field of presence where the unspoken begins to speak. Carl Jung would never rush to call this an innate aura. Instead, he would say, when the deepest part of the human being, the self, begins to stir, it awakens the shadows in others. That kind of presence carries a numinous quality, sacred, strange, and impossible to ignore. It doesn't shout yet, it has weight. And here's the truth, it isn't reserved for the chosen few. Everyone carries the seed of it. The difference is very few have the courage to go deep enough for that seed to take form. Picture a familiar scene Monday morning, glass-walled boardroom. You don't speak much. The boss outlines quarterly goals, heads nod in unison. Then you say just one quiet sentence, I'm not entirely at ease with this. It's not your tone, not even the words. It's the authenticity behind them that shifts the entire atmosphere. One colleague chuckles nervously, another reacts defensively. Someone else stares at the table in silence. You didn't do anything, but the collective unconscious is rearranging itself around you. Jung called this an archetypal tension. When authentic presence touches the denied parts of a group, projections erupt. People aren't reacting to you, they're reacting to the parts of themselves they glimpse in you. This isn't mysticism. Jung gave us a simple yet profound map. The persona is the mask we wear to navigate society. The shadow is everything we reject to keep that mask intact. The self is the wholeness at our center, and individuation is the journey back toward that center where the mask no longer rules, the shadow is brought into light, and life within us becomes coherent. When someone walks far enough on that path, they don't radiate light in a mystical sense, they become integrated. Inner and outer align. That coherence strikes a chord in others. Pretense becomes unbearable, avoidance exhausting, and self-deception suddenly has a scent. That's why your presence sometimes makes others restless, not because you're dangerous, but because the unexamined in them recognizes you as an invitation. If the opening was a door left slightly ajar, now we step fully into Jung's house. The map here is simple yet deep. The persona is the social mask that lets us move through the world, polite, titled role ready. The shadow is everything we once disowned, so the mask could stay intact. Anger, tenderness, desire, intuition. The self is the center of the whole where scattered pieces find their order. And individuation is the slow journey back to that center. When the journey advances far enough, a person doesn't shine in the flashy sense. They become coherent, aligned in thought, feeling, word, and deed. That coherence carries a numinous quality, strange still morally weighty. And then something curious begins to happen. The unconscious of others starts to stir. Jung calls this archetypal tension. No one is being hypnotized. It's simply that the repressed parts in each person, their shadows, suddenly see themselves in a mirror and they react. Picture an ordinary scene Monday morning, a glass-walled conference room at a company in Austin. You're quiet most of the time, jot a few notes. Near the end, you say something very American and very plain. I'm not clear on the baseline data for this decision. That's it. No attack, no flourish. Yet the field shifts. Someone laughs louder than needed. Someone starts making excuses. One person becomes overly eager, another avoids your eyes. On the surface, nothing. But beneath it, the projections have leapt to life. Fears of being wrong, exposed, abandoned, try to pin their usual mask on you. This doesn't make you special. It only means that in that moment, you're standing in a temenos, a sacred inner space where truth is calm enough to loosen a few masks. When people wobble around you, remember, they're not reacting to you as a person. They're reacting to the image they just glimpsed of themselves. Sometimes it happens over coffee in saddle. The person across from you starts with weather talk and suddenly shares that their marriage is cracking. You don't pry, you simply listen, eyes soft, shoulders down. An hour later, they leave. A few days later, they go quiet as if the meeting never happened. What just happened? That's projection, collapse. In the temporary temenos, your presence created someone touched what is real in themselves. Leaving that space, they feel exposed. Did I say too much? A defensive reflex pulls them back. Here, kindness needs a boundary. You're not the world's therapist and you don't need the savior role. A small, steady sentence can close the temenos well. Thank you for trusting me. Let's pause here so you have space to care for yourself tonight. You keep your stance of seeing, hearing, non-possessing. The rest belongs to them. Let's clear up a common confusion. Sensitivity to the room is not the same as trauma-driven vigilance. A nervous system shaped by threat can read a room fast and pick up signals sharply, but that's hypervigilance, not numinous presence. Both deserve respect and care. They just ask for different paths. If your heart races, shoulders brace, breath turns shallow, and your mind scripts worst-case scenarios in crowds, that's the defensive system at work. If you're steady, breathing deep, body soft, clearly aware of what's unfolding, a wakeful, unstrained being here, that's closer to coherence. This distinction isn't for judging. It's so you can choose the right self-care, sometimes a professional therapist, sometimes a stretch of woods, a page of writing, or a night of good sleep. You might ask yourself, which moments this week did I react from fear, and which moments did I respond from calm? There's another subtle trap: ego inflation, the self puffed up by the unconscious clinging to specialness. When others wobble around you, it's easy to slide into the story, I have something above the rest. Jung warns of the mana personality, the fantasy of power, when the self's energy pours through an ego that's still fragile. The antidote isn't self-demeaning, it's disciplined humility. Record a dream instead of preaching a sermon. Ask another question instead of rushing to a conclusion. Do one small right action instead of proclaiming something grand. A helpful reminder: I am only the doorkeeper of a space. The light does not belong to me. Holding that posture protects you and others from the dangerous myths of personal power. So what practice helps body and mind learn to stand in truth without raising your voice? Nothing elaborate, only rhythm. At day's end, open a small notebook and draw a line down the middle. What did I show the world today? And what did I hide today? Write 3 lines on each side without praise or blame. If this circle repeats long enough, the shadow starts sending letters with a return address. On Wednesday morning before opening email, spend 5 minutes in active imagination. Close your eyes, invite an image from last night's dream, a deer, a room, a child. Ask, what did you come to say? Don't edit the reply, just write it down. Then honor it with a small act. Call the friend you have avoided, decline the task you don't want. Sip water and take 3 slow breaths. Before the noon meeting, stand by a wall. Hands on the wall, press fully for 4 breaths, release for 6, a somatic doorway that turns tension into presence. And on Sunday night, draw a simple round mandala, not for beauty, but to witness how light and shadow have divided the week. Small, steady gestures will slowly weave that quiet, weighty quality in you. Let me tell you a story close to home. Nora, 34, a product lead in Denver, Monday morning, glass-walled conference room, slides humming by, heads nodding on autopilot. When it's Nora's turn, she simply says, I'd like us to slow down for a beat and check our underlying assumptions. Her voice is steady, her breath even. Instantly, the field shifts. One colleague cracks a joke louder than necessary. Another shields with a string of KPIs. The manager coughs and says, let's keep moving. On the surface, nothing. Underneath, the group shadow wakes up. Jung called moments like this archetypal tension, when a relatively coherent person, inner and outer aligned, enters the room. The disowned parts in others feel seen. They're not reacting to Nora. They're reacting to the image of themselves that her presence, like a mirror, just made visible. For years, Nora mistook this for, I'm causing trouble. She'd deflect or smile it away. Now, before she speaks, she runs a 10-second check. Are my feet on the ground? Shoulders softened. Exhale longer than inhale. If her body says yes, she speaks. If not, she takes half a step back, places a hand on the table, somatic before semantic, so the persona doesn't grab the reins. Then she offers gentle truth. I'm not against the plan. I want to test the riskiest assumption so we don't slide into avoidable debt. No attack, no heat. A temenos, a safe holding space opens. What Nora learns is this coherence isn't dropping the raw truth. It's moving with the body so truth has a clean chair to sit in. At break, a teammate pulls Nora into the hallway. You're always so serious. Heard with the old ear, it's a blade. Heard with Jung's ear, it's projection when someone says you're too anything their own shadow is asking to be admitted. Nora answers, I get that you want momentum. I'm slowing here to be sure. If the team wants to pilot version A and do a mid-sprint check, I'm in. No defensiveness, no sermon. She filters, she doesn't fix. She listens for the real need without trying to remodel the person. The hardest part isn't technique. It's refusing identification with the projection. Refusing to turn someone else's label into your identity. Jung would say complex meets complex. Autonomous bundles of feeling in me shake hands or trade blows with the autonomous bundles in you. When we can see it's a complex, it drives us less. After work comes a Friday night in Santa Fe. Nora sits across from Miles, a man who speaks slowly and looks you in the eye. They start with tacos and trail stories. 15 minutes in, Miles shares a breakup that changed his career. The openness arrives naturally as if a door had always been waiting. Temenos opens when there's witnessing without possession. But temenos isn't attachment. This is where we distinguish healthy resonance from a trauma bond. Resonance makes you expand, time slows. Your body breathes deeper. Trauma bond magnifies the emptiness. You want to save? Your breath goes shallow, heart racing. Nora asks herself, how am I breathing? Her body answers with a full inhale. She smiles and draws a soft boundary. I like how honest you are. My pace is slow and I want to keep this space clean so I can feel what I truly want. Miles nods. Thanks for being clear. Compassion with boundaries, that's adult love. Not every encounter stays smooth. The following week, the person who poured their heart out goes suddenly quiet. Projection collapse lands outside the temenos. They feel shame about their own tenderness or frustration that Nora didn't fill a particular need. This is fertile soil for ego inflation. It's easy to narrate. They're afraid of my depth. Nora shortens that story. Maybe their rhythm is different. I send a quiet blessing and return to what's mine. Not cold, disciplined humility. Jung warned about mana personality, the fantasy of special power, when self-energy pours through an ego that isn't grounded. The antidote is small human tasks: wash the dishes thoroughly, call mom, write 3 lines of shadow journal. The ordinary keeps us on the earth. Sunday family table in Minnesota. Dad tosses out a half joke, half ask, so when are you going to get married and put us at ease? All eyes slide toward Nora. In moments like this, a family complex, an inherited emotional current, often flips on. Jung called a complex a fragment of soul with a life of its own. You don't argue with a storm, you regulate until the storm dissolves. Nora breathes slow and places her answer in clean communication. I know you're hoping for that. I want something lasting more than something fast. I love how much our family cares, and I need to honor my own pace. Someone might still purse their lips, but the temenos inside Nora stays intact. She doesn't require others to understand her. She chooses not to betray herself. Let's pause for a few expansion styles we promised to lay in part 1. 1. Sensitivity versus vigilance. Use the body triangle whenever you enter a room: feet, belly, shoulders. Warm, soft, settling down, or cold, tight, bracing, up. Sensitivity rides with warm, soft down. Vigilance rides with catty hard up. 2. Short boundary scripts for 3 settings. Work. I'd like us to slow down for a beat and check our underlying assumptions. Dating is like this connection and my pace is slow. Family. I appreciate how much we care and I need to move at my pace. 3. Red flag checklist for people who try to remake you and then resent you. They speed you up beyond comfort. Ask you to be less deep. Assign meaning to your words for you. Use guilt to steer you. When all 4 appear together, you don't need to play teacher or villain. You just close the door gracefully. This isn't a fit for me. I'm going to step back here. 4. Countertransference, self-care. Whenever you feel the pull to save, to prove, or to be recognized, that's a part of you asking you to come home. Do something very human. Sip water, take a 10-minute walk, write 3 lines. What am I feeling? What do I need? What's the smallest next step? When you come home to yourself, the world carries less of your exaggerated version. If Nora's rhythm resonates, not because her story is your story, but because her cadence taps your inner timing, I'd love you closer to this practice community of gentle truth. Drop a comment in the 3 arenas: work, dating, family. Which one boundary sentence will you try this week, or name a moment you chose to filter? Not fix you, listen for the true need without remodeling the person. Reply to each other kindly, add a perspective, don't diagnose. When many people practice together, the collective unconscious shifts. It learns that there's a way to live that isn't loud and is still strong. You might ask, so where do I actually start? Next up, we'll put our hands on the toolkit, a 2-column shadow journal. What I show, what I hide, a 5-minute counted active imagination, the body door, push a wall for 4 to 6 breaths, and a Sunday mandala to track the week's light and shadow. We'll touch 2 subtle traps, spiritual bypassing, using light to avoid hard feelings and ego inflation, and how to land safely. Finally, we'll crack the door to the inner marriage, the union of softness with boundary intuition, with action, the destination toward which all these small roads are leading. If you're ready to bring the light home, not the blinding kind, but a warm lamp in the kitchen, come with me. We won't promise fast, we'll promise true. And true, as you already sense, is the only thing sturdy enough to live with. If the first 2 parts were about mapping the house and stepping into a few rooms, this is the moment we sit down in the center, open the toolbox, and actually work. Not loudly, quietly, steadily, so the self has a smooth road to travel. Picture an ordinary American day, maybe yours. The kitchen still smells like coffee at dawn. Back-to-back meetings at noon. Traffic in the late afternoon. A hard conversation in the evening. At midnight, a dream you haven't finished. In each scene, if you place one small gesture in the right spot, what Jung called coherence begins to set the inner climate deep and warm, weighty, without being heavy, straight, without being sharp, bright, without a glare. Morning. Before the world pours noise into your ears, open a page and draw a line down the middle. What did I show the world yesterday, and what did I hide from the world yesterday? No need to spill pages, just 3 lines in each column with one slow breath in between. Column 1, you said no to an invite your heart didn't want. You protected a quiet lunch. You looked the cashier in the eyes and said thank you. Column 2, you admit you hid the letdown when a close friend canceled. You swallowed a compliment because you feared it'd look like too much. You ignored your body's tired signal. That's enough for the shadow to start sending mail with a return address. You stop saying, this is just who I am, and start saying, this is what I did today, and a crack of freedom opens. If you've ever confused high sensitivity with hypervigilance after trauma, this is where the difference gets friendly. Sensitivity feels warm, soft, heavy, downward. Vigilance feels cold, hard, propped upward. If your hand shakes and your neck tenses while you write, your nervous system is sounding the alarm. What's needed now isn't self-judgment, it's more water, more sunlight, and a safe self-hug. What did yesterday's 2 columns show you? Noon. You walk into a meeting where the surface is targets and revenue, but the deeper layer is family complexes pulling up chairs. Run your body's 10-second check, feet on the floor. Exhale longer than the inhale. Shoulders drop instead of rising to shield the neck. When the body says okay, speak one gentle truth, not to prove you're right, but to open a temenos for the group. I'd like to slow 1 beat and check the base assumptions so we can fix anything early. Watch the projections wake around the table. One person jokes loudly, one clutches KPIs, one avoids eye contact. Instead of wearing each reaction home like arrows in your shirt, stand in your core and remind yourself, they're not reacting to me, they're reacting to what they see of themselves in the mirror I happen to be holding. You don't need to be a guru or a scapegoat. You're the doorkeeper, opening and closing the temenos with kindness and boundaries. If someone says, you're too serious, try Jung's slow tempo. I go slow where risk lives, so we can go fast where it matters. Let's try a version A and review mid-sprint. Can you feel how tenderness grows a backbone when it travels with breath? Late afternoon traffic, the perfect lesson in counter-transference with yourself. In those moments, complex meets, complex without a word. A horn blares like it's calling an old memory by name, and the winning ego flares up. Treat this like the self's mini gym. Loosen your grip on the wheel, soften your gaze to the distance. Let your tongue drop from the palate, exhale through the mouth, long. You don't kill irritation, you move it through a bodily doorway until it becomes presence. That's when you see coherence isn't no emotions. Coherence is not handing the steering wheel to emotions. This won't make you a saint. It makes you a human who refuses to pass the poison along while still telling the truth. What signal does your body give you first in traffic, the jaw, the chest, or the hands? Evening brings a hard talk with someone you love, the most fertile ground for spiritual bypassing, where we dodge hard feelings with light language. You might hear yourself lecturing about energy, saying pretty empty words to avoid a very specific wound. Pause at your throat, touch your sternum, and ask softly, what am I hiding from? If the answer is, I'm afraid of being left, bring it to light with a plain sentence. I want to stay and be honest, and I'm afraid of not being chosen. When truth walks into the room, watch their eyes change, less defense, less avoidance, just a human facing a human. Temenos doesn't open with flags of philosophy, it opens with responsible vulnerability. If the other person tries to change you and then resents you, you may notice 4 signs. They speed you up beyond your comfort. They want you less deep. They narrate your needs for you. They use guilt to steer. In the past, you would have explained yourself to exhaustion. Today, you say one simple, weighty line, I value this connection and my tempo is slow. If that fits, we can continue. If not, I'll keep my tempo. A gentle closing is still a closing, and your heart thanks you for not betraying yourself. Where are you tempted to speed up to keep the peace? Near midnight, lights low, you place a notebook by the pillow and give 5 minutes to active imagination. Last night, you dreamed a fox sitting at your porch. Tonight, you invite it back and ask, what did you come to say? It won't answer in human words. It turns its head toward the woods, then holds your gaze. You write it down without quick analysis. Tomorrow you'll honor the symbol with one small act, a 5-minute walk without earbuds, so intuition has room to whisper. Working with symbols, you'll feel a gentle gravity that some rival videos might call a rare aura. In other terms, this is the self's numinous quality. It doesn't need applause. It asks for your fidelity in small things. This is also where ego inflation prowls. The feeling of being chosen is addictive. To break the spell, you lift a cup and wash the dishes with care. Send one sincere check-in, text Neil to pick up the sock under the bed. Ordinary acts keep light from bursting into a bonfire of self-importance. What's one tiny ritual that keeps you rooted when the inner light grows bright? How do I avoid turning into someone's guru when people tend to open up around me? There's a Jung-style Temenos etiquette. Nobody taught us in school. Don't diagnose, don't fix. Don't borrow someone else's story as jewelry for your ego. Do just 3 things. Listen with your body, mirror back a single short line, and close with an invitation for them to care for themselves. Listening with your body means shoulders lowered, eyes soft, breath even. A short mirror sounds like, I hear this matters, and it hurts, right? The closing is, thank you for trusting me. Do something kind for yourself tonight. Then you leave the temenos without trophies, carrying only gratitude for having witnessed a piece of a person. Which part of that 3-step courtesy is easiest for you and which is hardest? From here, I'd love to invite you deeper into the small community growing around this journey. No initiation rites, just one gesture in the comments. Name one tiny thing you'll do in the next 7 days to stay loyal to the self. A boundary sentence at work. Slow breath before replying to your partner. A dream you'll jot down even if it feels strange. If you like, share a symbol that just visited a creature, a room, a color, and how you'll honor it with action. Let's answer each other with kindness, adding perspective without imposing it, so our collective unconscious can practice a new language where depth is ordinary and boundaries are a form of love. What's your small promise for this week? Next time, we'll name the quiet destination of all these movements, the inner marriage. You'll see why Jung called wholeness a union of opposites, softness, and boundary intuition and action. The inner feminine and inner masculine, and why when that marriage occurs, you don't need to carry a manifesto around. You become the manifesto by how you live. We'll cross that threshold with a short story, a 3-breath practice, and a Sunday mandala. If your heart just nodded, that's sign enough to go on. We won't light fireworks, we'll light a lamp. Sometimes a warm kitchen lamp changes the climate of the whole house. Are you ready to stand at that threshold? It's time to touch the quiet destination toward which everything we've been doing has been moving the inner marriage. Jung calls the path to wholeness, the union of opposites, softness with boundaries, intuition with action, care with decisiveness, depth with discipline. When these pairs stop pulling us apart and start holding hands, we don't need a manifesto anymore. Our way of living becomes the manifesto. If in part 1 we map the terrain persona shadow self individuation, and in parts 2 and 3 we learn to stand inside a temenos with work, love, and family, now we install the central gear, Anima/Animus, the inner counterpole quietly steering our attitudes, choices, and the subtle fields around us. This isn't about gender stereotypes. Feminine and masculine here are energetic qualities we all carry. Eros, connection, sensing, nurturing. Logos, clarity, structure, discernment. When Eros and Logos in us marry, the inner house isn't empty anymore. Picture a very American morning. Google Calendar packed, Slack pinging, and you someone who's leaned hard into Logos already sprinting. Logos has gotten you far, but without Eros, the schedule turns into a guillotine. You finish everything and still feel hollow. Flip it, and a person who leans only into Eros endlessly, empathic heart wide open without Logos, burns out on the path of goodness. The art isn't switching sides. The art is setting the table for both mornings. 30 minutes for Eros silence, dream notes, a slow coffee, then hand the reins to Logos. 3 priorities. Clear boundaries per call. At noon, give Eros a chair again. 1 breath, 1 body felt question. What am I feeling then? Hand the mic to Logos in the afternoon. Small, firm decisions. At night, Eros and Logos clean the kitchen together. That disciplined alternation is a simple, effective intermarriage ritual, not flashy, but it changes the climate of a life. On a deeper level, Anima/Animus shows up most clearly when we flare up or fall hard. Notice how you always fall for a certain type. Often the other person becomes a white screen for your unrecognized counterpole to project its film. One person is enamored with a she who is gentle, just right, perfect. Another with a he who is decisive, steady, solves everything. Individuation asks us to deproject, gently pull our piece back, so the other is free to be themselves. A concrete practice every time your heart swells because someone seems too perfect. Write 3 lines. What qualities am I imputing to them? 3 lines, where are these qualities underdeveloped in me? And 1 small action I will honor this quality in me by. That might be enrolling in a speaking class, Logos, or tending a plant for 20 minutes, Eros. To love is to see, and we only truly see once we've gathered our shadow from the screen. 1 confusion to clear from part 1. Numinous versus novelty. Many people mistake the strong, strange hit of dopamine when someone new notices them for the numinous quality of the self. The numinous doesn't glare, it warms. It doesn't demand rush or smother. It opens. Use the 5-sign filter. 1 is your breath deeper or shallower? Does your body settle or braced, or does time feel roomy or urgent? 4, do you want to broadcast it to everyone or tend it quietly? After the encounter, are you kinder to the cashier or more irritable? If 4 or 5 lean toward warm, heavy, wide, quiet kind, you are likely sensing a numinous resonance. If they lean toward bright, shallow, hurried, showy, edgy, it's novelty poking a complex. Seeing this difference keeps your temenos from burning down in the fire of excitement. Intermarriage isn't only a gentle ritual, it goes through conflict. One evening you want to care for your partner, Eros, and you also need to say a hard truth, Logos. Old, you would choose one and kill the other. Soothe to the point of betraying truth, or speak so bluntly you tear the bond. Today, try 2 sentences side by side. I want you to feel supported, and I also need to say this so we can be real with each other. The word "and" is the bridge in the language of marriage. Add 1 body cue, hand to sternum, slow exhale so Logos doesn't turn to a hammer and Eros doesn't turn to syrup. The outcome may not be perfect, but the temenos holds. Trust gets watered by both truth and kindness. Another expansion, the ethics of presence. Don't use your field of presence to bargain. If someone reveals their tenderness, don't raise your value by hoarding their secret as power. Don't wear their words as spiritual jewelry for the ego. The ethics of the temenos has 3 small rules. 1. No diagnosing, don't label people with pathologies. 2. No possessing, don't force connection or overpromise. 3. No retelling, guard their story like a candle in the wind. These keep your inner marriage from slipping into mana possession, the subtle power delusion Jung warned about. Try a beautiful experiment of inner marriage. the 2-column Eros Logos Daybook. Each morning, write 3 Logos actions: clear, measurable, make a call, finalize a doc, submit a report, and 3 Eros actions: nourishing, soma felt. 10 minutes of silence, a walk without headphones, 5 lines of gratitude. Let them weave through your day like 2 threads. After a Logos task, return to a short Eros breath. If you've soaked in Eros too long, return to 1 small Logos task. After 21 days, you'll see it. That so-called rare aura others mention isn't magic. It's a soul habit. Of course, there will be days you miss. You say too much, which is mom. You go quiet when you needed to speak. You trust too fast and withdraw too late. You drift into spiritual bypassing, using pretty words to dodge the truth or inflate the ego, crowning yourself special. Remember the antidote we've scattered through this series: return to the small. Wash the dishes thoroughly, fold the shirt slowly, send a clear apology, and write 3 lines. What am I responsible for? What did I learn? What small next step will I take? Inner marriage isn't proven by speeches, it's lived in everyday gestures. I want to invite you right now into this channel's practice community of inner marriage. In the comments, share 1 pair of opposites you're seating at the same table this week, e.g. candor, gentleness, speed, depth, freedom, commitment. Write 1 in sentence you'll use in clean communication. I honor your feelings, and I need this boundary to be true to myself. If it feels safe, share a recent symbol from a dream, a bridge, a river, a lamp. In 1 small way, you'll honor it. Reply to each other with kindness. Don't fix each other, just witness. When many people practice together, the collective unconscious learns a new language, where depth is normal. Boundaries are an act of love, and difference isn't a threat. And like all weddings, there's a honeymoon night of the soul, the moment you realize you don't have to prove anything anymore. You're not trying to radiate anything, you're simply present. Others may waver, the world may be loud, but inside you is a warm kitchen, water quietly boiling, a soft yellow light, a chair left open for the self to sit in each evening. There you don't ask, how do I become rare? You ask, was I faithful today? The answer rarely arrives as fireworks. It arrives as clean spoons, a kind text, a good night's sleep. Next, we'll gather it all into a closing rite, a 3-phase breath to clear the field, a Sunday mandala to watch the marriage grow, and a small promise you'll sign with yourself for the next 30 days. Don't go alone. If your heart nods, walk with me to the final threshold where you don't need an aura, because the truth living in you is enough to change the climate of any room you enter. By now, the question isn't, how do I get a rare aura? It's how to live an ordinary life without betraying the extraordinary growing within. Jung would smile, the path isn't in tricks that impress, but in tending the house of the soul. Small rites, steady honesty, the ethics of presence. This final movement is about carrying what we found, persona, shadow projection, temenos, the inner marriage, into daily life until each becomes a gentle habit. In the morning before your phone wakes, brew coffee and open a 1-page kitchen journal to write 3 lines. Today, I will be loyal to the self by. The boundary I need is. One kind gesture I'll offer is, loyalty might mean declining a pointless meeting. A boundary could be muting Slack for 30 minutes. The kindness might simply be asking the barista, how's your day? No preaching, just small consistency. Do this long enough and you'll see why the self needs no advertisement. It's recognized by the warm field around someone living true. At work practice, the art we often skip: repair after rupture. Every temenos tears, sometimes a hasty email, a curt line, a cold glance. Don't spin a story about not belonging. Take a grown step and send a short note that holds logos and eros. Earlier, I replied too fast and may have irritated you. I meant X, not Y. I'd like to repair this and move forward. Repair is the ethic of the inner marriage. It keeps truth from becoming a hammer and kindness from turning to syrup. At noon, walk 7 minutes without headphones, a mobile temenos. In that content-less space, the unconscious gets a mouth. A bridge flashes up from sincerity to assertiveness. Jot it down and honor it tonight with 2. And sentences in a hard conversation: I want you to feel supported, and I need to say this so we can stay real with each other. In the afternoon, someone praises your energy. Stay still. Thank you, I'm training slow and clear. Then run it through the 5-sign filter: breath, deeper or shallow body, heavier or lifted, time, spacious or rushed motive to show or to tend, kinder or more irritable, and follow resonance over dopamine. Later, a text clenches your chest. Instead of rescuing, proving, or seeking recognition, practice self-care, countertransference, wash your face, drink water, breathe 4-2-6, then write 3 lines. What am I feeling? What do I need? What is the smallest next right thing? It's rarely a sermon, it's usually sleep enough. Walk 10 minutes or wait till morning. Slow discipline is the self's best friend. Evening brings the family call, the old soil of ancestral complexes. Set a time container before you speak. Use the Eros Logos sandwich. I know this matters to you, Eros, and I need to choose my pace logos. Someone may still pout, but your inner Temenos holds. You don't need to win the argument, you refuse to lose yourself. Late night draw a Sunday mandala, left half done right, not to brag, right half to repair, not to punish. In the center, a small dot. The self no larger, no smaller. Sign a 30-day promise, 1 logos, act 1, Eros act 1, act for the body each day. Don't judge bad days, return the next day. If aura appears at all, it's a byproduct, not the goal. Measure progress without turning soul work into KPIs. 5 living signs, softer with small faults, clearer boundaries without edge. Less need to explain yourself. Time widening in crucial moments, faster repairs after harm. If 3 of 5 are yes across 4 weeks, you're on the path. If not, shrink the step and return to the small thing. The road doesn't reward speed, it rewards faithful return. Remember service when the self steadies you. Naturally do the task at hand. Well, write the kind email mentor. The intern, take out a neighbor's trash. Join a support circle for the newly awakening. Service doesn't make you sacred. It makes you belong, healing the old ache of not belonging to the crowd. After all, what you bring into a room isn't a perfect stance or clever words. It's climate, a warm safety where others can be themselves and you can be you. Don't chase 1% hacks. Seek 1% more loyalty, gentleness, and clarity each day, and the sum of those tiny percents becomes the thing people mistake for rare. If your heart just nodded, come a little further. No fireworks, just the kitchen light, and sometimes that's enough to change the climate of the room you'll walk into tomorrow. If you've stayed with me this far, you've probably sensed the most important thing. A rare aura isn't a trophy to display, it's the warm climate of a soul that stays faithful to the truth. When persona steps back, the shadow is invited into light. The self gets a seat, and we stop trying to impress our presence. Alone shifts the tempo of the room. We began with very human questions and walked through ordinary American rooms, offices, family dinners, first dates, quiet dreams. In each space, we practiced small moves, gentle truth-telling, heart-forward boundaries, slow breathing, dream journaling, a simple Sunday circle. Over time, what others call rare becomes a humble habit. Before we close, here's a simple evening ritual like turning on a warm kitchen light. Sit tall with soft shoulders. Inhale for 4, hold for 2, exhale for 6. Place a hand on your sternum and whisper, I choose to live honestly, not perfectly. When the breath lengthens, open your notebook, just 1 page, and write 3 lines. How was I faithful to the self today? What boundary do I need? What small act of kindness will I offer? Each weekend, draw a small round mandala. Don't make it pretty. Just notice how the play of light and shadow has shifted. Then make a 30-day promise. 1 logos act, clarity. 1 Eros act, nourishment. In 1 act for the body, walk sleep water each day. You won't need anyone to grade you. Life will answer with 5 soft markers. You're gentler with small mistakes. Your boundaries get clearer without sharp edges. You explain yourself. Less time feels wider at the moments that matter, and you repair more quickly after a misstep. If 3 of the 5 nod yes, you're on rhythm. A note to tape inside the cabinet door, don't confuse sensitivity with post-trauma hypervigilance. If your body goes cold, rigid, prickly, your nervous system is sounding the alarm. Choose safety first, drink water, step into sunlight, call a friend, and when needed, seek a professional. Nothing here replaces therapy. These practices are gentle companions for walking with the unconscious in order. Also, don't mistake the numinous for dopamine novelty. The numinous is warm, open, unhurried. It leaves you kinder to the cashier afterward, not fidgety to brag online. And watch the mana trap the subtle illusion of special power. When people wobble around, you don't crown yourself different. Keep a humble discipline, scrub the dishes as well, write 3 honest lines, check in on someone with real presence. Light needs no backdrop. It needs a trustworthy doorkeeper. If there's one takeaway, let it be this. You don't have to become the 1%. Just be 1% more faithful each day to what's true. Gather enough of those small percents and your inner climate shifts. Without many words, others will feel a warmer field where they too feel safe to be honest. That's lasting influence, not persuading anyone, but tending a space where living truth can breathe. Now for my favorite part, connection. Drop a short comment for me and for those reading below. What's your 30-day promise? 1 logos, 1 eros, 1 for the body. Which pair of opposites will you bring to the table this week? Candor and gentleness, speed and depth, freedom and commitment. If it feels safe, share a symbol that visited you, a bridge, a lantern, a door, and the small act by which you'll honor it. Respond to each other by witnessing, not diagnosing. At a vantage point, don't fix one another. As more of us practice gentle truth, the collective unconscious learns a new language where boundaries are a form of love and depth feels normal. If this video touched something in you, stay with us, subscribe, and hit the bell. Not to chase an algorithm, but to remind yourself, I want to keep this conversation alive. Share it with a friend you know is standing at the edge of a doorway. Sometimes a 4-2-6 breath, and I need a slower rhythm is enough to help them step through. Coming up, a brief guided session of active imagination, a repair practice for ruptures at work and at home, and a deep projection map for drawing back projections without tearing the bond. Want a live Q&A? Tell me below. I read and build from what this community needs. I love ending with an ordinary picture. A late-night American kitchen sink, clean kettle, murmuring warm light, pooling on wood. No fireworks, just a quiet lamp. Here you don't have to perform win or be called rare. You wash a cup, fold a towel, write 3 lines, and know you've stayed faithful a little more. That's how the self remains. That's how climates change. Tomorrow when you enter a room conference, classroom, corner store, the air shifts a beat and no one knows why. Some call it aura. I call it living truth. Thank you for walking with me to the end. If your heart just nodded, leave a small trace below, a promise, a symbol, a boundary, and tap subscribe so we can meet again. We won't be loud, we'll just light the lamp. Sometimes that's enough to warm the whole house.